I didn't cook this morning. I told my wife.
We'll forgive you.
Had a rough week. Canned 100 pints of whatever.
They're not done yet.
Huh?
100 pints of whatever, it sounds appetizing.
He said tomatoes yesterday. Ketchup, salsa, pizza sauce, and spaghetti sauce. Okay, we're in Luke 22, 47 to 48. Jesus is addressed. Everybody got a paper?
Yeah, while he was,
Yep. You got one? Well, you gotta speak up.
I thought he was getting one for all of us.
That's
Thank
not
you.
because you asked me.
After you got the bus, didn't you?
Okay, that's your fault. Luke 22, 47, 48.
while he was still speaking, a crowd came up, and then a man who was called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. He approached Jesus to kiss him, but Jesus asked him, Judas, as you betray the Son of Man, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?
Okay, go ahead and redo it.
Matthew
Matthew 26.
53 or 57. Those who had arrested Jesus took him to
Caiaphas.
the high priest, where the teachers of the law and the elders had assembled.
Okay. Jesus is going to be tried on two levels. He's going to be tried on a spiritual level. He's going to be tried on a spiritual level. Okay. Why?
Because they're trying to prove that he's not who he says he is.
Say
I
again?
said they're trying to prove that he is not who he says he is.
Okay. They're trying to prove he's not who he says he is. That's what they're trying to prove is that, I don't know, do they really think he's not who he says he is?
They know. They know.
How could they not
They know.
482 prophecies concerning the Messiah. 400 of them will be fulfilled, 408 or 9, depending on who you read. Over 400 of them will be fulfilled by the time he comes out of the grave. Okay? He has healed how many thousands of people, and the Bible says he did it daily. And do you think there was one day of his ministry that there was a Pharisee there taking notes? And how many times did they try to trap him? And how many times did he shut them down using God's word? Do you think they could not have known? So, it was their conspiracy to do it, but this wasn't an honest trial. You're right, that's what they were trying to do. But in their hearts, they knew the truth. They could not know the truth. Okay. I mean, I'm not beginning your answer. Your answer was right. But in their hearts, it was a conspiracy. It wasn't a trial for justice. Okay? Why did he have to go through a Gentile trial? He's also going to go to Agrippa. He's going to go to Pilate. To go to those guys too, and that's on a physical level, it's on a civil level, and he's going to be before the Gentiles. So why was it necessary that he be tried both spiritually and both with respect to religion and with respect to civil?
I felt like it was the foundation. It's what started everything else after, and it was all planned. God had it all planned, and to use it as an example for everybody else, and to not to test Jesus's. I don't know. I just think it's more like it just started the foundation. foundation. Like
Yeah.
it all started there, and that's what, by him talking to this person and this person and this person, then they talked to other people, and the Bible was made, and so it was kind of like the
Okay.
foundation, I guess.
Okay, that's good, that's good. Anybody else?
He had to be, he had to go between Pilate and the Gentiles to be seen, so that eventually they will know his work, and he's going to be accepted through the Gentiles.
Okay, that's good, that's good. See, at this point in time, Jesus' ministry was only to who? Jews. He said, remember the woman came to him and said, will you come and heal me? And he said, should the food be taken from the children and given to the dogs? And the woman said, but the dogs get the crumbs, don't they? And he said, greater faith I have not found in all of Israel. And he told her, I have come to minister to Israel to lay the foundation, like we said. But where is it going to go? As soon as he comes out of that grave, and as soon as he's resurrected to Christ, he's going to go to the Gentiles and send Paul to the Gentiles. And they have to know that he was innocent too. So he had to be tried both by civil and by the religious people, so the Jews would know he was who he said he was. And so the Gentiles would also know, like Don said, who he said he was. Because right now they don't know a whole lot about him. Basically up to this point, he's been surrounded by Israelites and hearing the words of God from the Old Testament. But his ministry, you know, the whole purpose of the Jews was to bring salvation to the world. And they closed up the Gentile porch and made it a den of thieves. They rejected Gentiles in every way they could. And even after he was gone, they rejected Gentiles in every way they could. All right. It's interesting here. What is he doing in 48 when he says, but Jesus asked him, Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss? Now he hasn't kissed him yet. What is he doing there? He said, Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss? But he hasn't been kissed yet. What is he doing there?
Giving him a chance?
He's given Judas a final opportunity to repent. He wants Judas back. He still loves Judas, knowing what Judas is going to do. And he would take him back if Judas would just break down and step aside. Also, look who's leading them. And while I was still speaking, the crowd came, and the man who was called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. Judas was bringing them to the garden. He was finding Jesus, and he was turning Jesus over to him. But Jesus gives him one last chance. And he says, Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss? Look at the parody there. You're betraying me with a kiss. You know, he could have betrayed him with a finger. That's him. He could have betrayed him with a whisper. That's him over there. He let him up, and he betrayed him with a kiss. It shows the real depravity of his heart. The depth to which he has sunk, and what cost it all. What other verse comes to mind? What caused it all from the very beginning?
Greed. We both said greed.
Greed and money.
Yeah, we both said greed.
And the verse is, hey,
Bonnie got one right.
Bonnie rubbing up on you?
You better sit over here next week.
Sorry, Bonnie.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay. What's the verse? The love of money is the root of all evil. money ruins everything. I made a statement yesterday and said, I've never worked this hard for money. We were in the middle, we put up the walls in 2 hours and 15 minutes, and then it took 3 hours to put a board on top of it because the floor was off, and the trusses were off, and we were ripping boards and using sledgehammers. And I was serious. I never worked that hard for money, never had a better day. I mean, we got it done, we got it fixed, it was for the Lord, and I walked out of there a little tight in the back, but I wasn't mad. Bill was a little embarrassed, and that was okay, he messed with the floor. But I was a little frustrated at points when we were trying to drive that board in between the trusses and the wall, but it was a great day. With people I love, we did a great job, we did it quickly and efficiently, and it looks good. I never worked that hard for money, but I never enjoyed a day more. So money ruins everything. It sets people against each other. You got to have a boss to get it. I mean, there's all kinds of frustrations with getting your paycheck at the end of every week. But when you do something and you volunteer, it's so much different. Okay. They took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the teachers of the law and the elders had assembled. Why did it have to be Caiaphas, the high priest?
He was supposed to be sacrificed by his own.
Right. The lamb that was sacrificed for the sin of the nation had to be inspected, had to be perfect, and it all had to be done by the high priest. So Caiaphas had to be the one that was going to put him on the cross. Now, what's the problem with this?
The Jewish people, the Israelites, could not sentence to death their own people.
Right. Scripturally, that was true, and civilly, it was also true, because Rome would not allow anybody but a Roman magistrate or a Roman official to levy the death sentence. So physically, Jason told you on the physical level, or on the spiritual level, it couldn't be done, except for a few instances where people could be stoned, like for adultery, things like that. But that was handled by the Word of God. That was handled by the law given down by God. So it was basically coming from God that they could levy that. And only in those few instances where it was so grievous a sin that they needed to be removed from the congregation of the people. Okay. But actually, it was the authority of God that gave them to do that. They could not do it on their own. And civilly, they could not do it because the Romans had to do it. All right? But the lamb had to be sacrificed by the high priest. So how are we going to get around that?
Is it because he is the ultimate high priest? Is it because he is the ultimate high priest?
Hang on to that. We'll get right back to it in a second. That's a great answer to the next question. Okay. How are we going to get past the civil thing?
Give it to the Romans.
Huh?
Take him to the Romans.
They're going to take him to the Romans, but the Romans aren't allowed to give the authority to anybody else.
They're hoping that, the Romans will do it and their hands will be washed and clean.
Okay? That might have been their justification, but God's not going to accept that sacrifice unless the high priest is in charge. So what happens? Remember what Pilate did?
Is that what Pilate gave him the choice?
Yeah. Pilate said, I wash my hands of this. I wash my hands of this. You take him and you do what you want to with him. And that was the only time in historical record that a Roman magistrate ever gave up that authority. And he had to, because on the physical level, this high priest had to be responsible for Jesus' death, or the people would not accept the sacrifice of the Lamb on the cross. If Pilate had been in charge of it, it would not have been an acceptable sacrifice. He gave it up to the high priest. Now, was the high priest really in charge here?
No.
Thank you. Who was in charge here?
God.
Huh? Jesus. Jesus was. Remember what he told Pilate? Pilate said, "Do you not know I have the authority to take your life?" And what did Jesus say to him?
He said, you're not going to take it. I give it freely.
You do not have the authority.
You can't
to
take
my
what
life.
I'm giving freely.
I am giving my life freely. And what does Hebrews say about Jesus?
That he's the ultimate high priest.
He's the great high priest. They called Caiaphas the high priest, but Hebrews calls Jesus the great high priest. So, on a physical level, people are looking at it and they're saying, it's acceptable because Caiaphas did it. But on the spiritual level, it was acceptable to God because Jesus Christ, the great high priest, did it. And so both areas are meticulous. And the prophecies are meticulously fulfilled. This was Satan was doing a dance. He said, we got him, because when Pilate puts him on the cross, he will not be acceptable and there will be no salvation for the world. And Pilate said, I wash my hands of this. Can you imagine the slump that Satan went into at that point in time? That, all of Hades yelled, no, that can't be. And Pilate walked away from it and gave it to Jesus. And salvation came to the world.
I don't think Pilate necessarily had anything against Christ. He didn't really, other than, okay, we got another guy coming in to the Israel nation here, and people are following him, and people are jubilant, and he's doing all these great things. And yeah, he's probably going to be a problem if he sticks around and comes up to full power. But other than that, I think Pilate was looking at it from the point of, okay, these priests, the Sanhedrin, you're all the ones that's got the problem with this guy, and he's just a commoner, and I really don't see what the big deal is.
I think you're right, and I agree with you.
I think Pilate was looking at, I don't know if he was fully aware of the power of Jesus Christ.
No, he wasn't. He knew nothing about prophecy.
And
he was just being used by God.
yeah, he was just,
Yeah. He wasn't doing anything righteous,
no.
but he was also in the will of God because God used him and he was obedient. And I think he probably didn't even know he was being obedient. But that happens all the time. How many times has God used you and you look back later and said, oh, wow, I guess that's where I should have been? That never happened to you?
God probably looked at Pilate and said, well, there's a big dummy, and he's not going to be too hard to get him to do what I need him to do here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. But, it's happened to all of us. And you think, oh, well, all right, I'll do it. And then you do it. And then you look back on it later and you said, oh, I guess that's where I was supposed to be.
I also think Pilate probably was wanting control and felt like if he let the high priest tell him what to do, he was going to lose control of it too. So he's like, you're not telling me what to do. I don't find anything wrong with this guy. You do what you feel, and this is all on your hands.
Yeah, I'm sure that was his attitude all along, which makes the decision he made even more astounding. Because for Pilate to give up this control control was amazing. It just wasn't something somebody in his position would have done. Okay. Any more questions on this? Any more comments? That's good.
Am I wrong in thinking, I now, I'm not sure if there's a verse in here or if it was just one of the movies I seen of the crucifixion, but was Pilate's wife sent him a note or something too?
Oh, 3 times Pilate's
Yeah.
wife came to him and said, don't have anything to do with this. So I think you're right. Pilate probably was worried more about his authority, but God was actually using his wife behind the scenes more than he was using him. Because his wife kept coming to him saying, get out of this, don't have anything to do with this, leave this alone. Okay, Jordan.
So the moral to the story is men, listen to your wives.
God always uses your wife behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't want to admit it. Okay. All right. So, yeah, Pilate's wife was there. Just this week, where did you see God use somebody that you would have never guessed he would have used? All over the TV.
I don't watch news anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
President Trump went before the UN and through his microphone spoke to the entire world, and this is what he said: governments do not give people human rights. God gives people human rights. They need to be free to worship. Now, is that something you would have expected from Donald Trump?
No.
You know, I'm sitting here thinking, it's all going to be politics, and then he says that. Now, kind of like Pilate, I don't know if Trump had a clue what he was saying from a spiritual standpoint. But the message was clear. And he said it with force. And none of the news media, except for a couple of places, none of the news media reported on it at all. Never said a word about it. But that was an astounding thing for God to say just days before his return. Governments do not give people human rights. God gives people human rights. He is the one that's in charge. Our rights come from him. And he uses governments to get it done, but it doesn't come from them. It comes from him. Don't even give Donald Trump credit if human rights are improved, because they come from God. But it was an astounding example of how God uses people, and very unlikely people, very often. Okay. Matthew 26, 59 to 63.
The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for false evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death. But they did not find any, though many false witnesses came forward. Finally, 2 came forward and declared, "This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days." Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, "Are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you?" But Jesus remained silent. The high priest said to him, "I charge you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God."
Okay, go ahead and read the last one.
Early in the morning, all the chief priests and the elders of the people came to the decision to put Jesus to death.
All right, what was the motive here? Justice? Now, this is the third time since we started looking at this in a couple of days. This is the third time that it says that they brought false witness against him so that they could put him to death. This is not about justice. This is not about truth. This is about getting rid of the thorn in their side.
They didn't want to lose their authority. They didn't want to lose their authority and power.
No.
And they were jealous because Jesus was getting all the attention.
You know, the Bible says that the love of money is the root of all evil, but what is number 2?
Power.
Power. Power. People want to have power over others. Okay. And there's some interesting parallels here. They couldn't find any witness, and then a couple people said, I am able to destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. Now, what was he talking about there?
Himself.
His death, his body, that would be torn down, and then it would come back in 3 days. Okay. On a physical level, what also happened? In the year 70 AD.
Romans destroyed the temple.
The Romans came in and totally and completely destroyed the temple because of rebellion, and they lost it for 2,000 years. Remember that verse that says we reap what we sow? They had the temple, and when Jesus was crucified, what happened within the temple? What should have been a screaming revelation to them that what Jesus said here, not only on a spiritual level, but on a physical level, that this was going to happen. Huh?
The veil was torn. Sorry, the veil was torn.
Yeah, this big veil that was in front of the temple. And if you go back into the Old Testament and read what they were just layer and layer and layer of material. One of the layers it said was dolphin hide or dolphin skin, real thick leather. It wasn't a real dolphin from the ocean. It was, if you go back and research it was a thick hide of some kind. Okay, so they had thick hides in there, and they had layers and layers of thick material. Why?
Separate the Holy of Holies. To separate the Holy of Holies from the
Okay.
rest.
On the spiritual level, that's true, but on the physical level, what?
And be able to block.
They had to contain the glory of God. When the glory of God filled the temple, if anybody had have actually laid eyes on it, except that priest who was allowed to go in there and had prepared himself to go in there, if the glory of God had have spilled out and have touched any of their eyes, they'd have been consumed. Remember what he told Moses? He put him in a cleft of a rock, put his hand over him, and then when he was far off, he took his hand away and let Moses see the backside of him, not his face, because he said, my glory will consume you. When God was really inhabiting that Holy of Holies, if any of his glory, any of his brightness would have spilled out, anybody who had caught a glimpse of it would have been instantly consumed by it. In their
Consumed, what does
sinful
that
nature.
mean? What does that mean? What does we consumed mean by that? I mean,
We in our sinful
I just
nature
consumed a
can-
donut, where's the time?
They
It's
would
gone.
I mean, what would it do to you? I mean,
kill
like,
you. They used to put bells on the priest's feet so that they know when they went in there they were still alive, because if they were anywhere unclean, they would instantly die when they were in there. And then they would tie a string on, so if they didn't hear the bells, they could pull the body out from underneath the
Yeah.
Holy of Holies.
And they pulled a few out.
They die and then their souls go to heaven, like.
Well,
or
no,
hell?
not at that time, not at that time.
That's up to God.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't make it, we can't say that their souls wouldn't go to heaven because it made a mistake. But remember the guy that just touched the ark because he thought it was going to fall off the cart, and he was instantly struck dead right there. You just didn't mess with the glory of God, because in our sinful nature, we can't behold it. It would just destroy us. Now, when we die and go to heaven, we'll have spiritual bodies, and we will be able to behold it and live within it, but in our sinful nature, we can't. And then the temple, the curtain was rent. Now this was one piece of cloth, and it says it was rent from the top to the bottom, and it was depending on, you know, they did cubits back then, and cubits was from the middle finger to the elbow of the king, and sometimes it was 18 inches, and if you lived in North Korea and you were the king, it was probably 14 inches, and then if you had Saul, it was probably 19 and a half inches. So a cubit changed whenever the king changed. Okay. So, but it was somewhere between 10 and 14 feet high, and it was rent from the top to the bottom. So it was rent from God. And to rip it wide open with all those layers and heavy, a layer of heavy, thick leather, and just to walk in one day and see that it was torn from the top to the bottom, shouldn't that have said something to somebody? Shouldn't that have said, it's not holy anymore, my son's holy, and he will live within you, and you have access to God now, direct access. Okay. The priests never caught it, or they didn't want to catch it.
They didn't want to admit they were wrong.
What?
Is there ever any more word about them?
Yeah, actually,
What when they had to know.
yeah, it happened.
Maybe they were scared of the truth, so by denying it, they couldn't make it real to them, so they had to deny it.
Well,
By denying it for them,
They didn't want to hear it.
yeah,
They just didn't want to hear it.
yeah.
The temple was torn down, and the rocks were put on carts, and they were spread all over the Mediterranean area. They made it so that that temple could not be put back together again if they lost rule later on. And Caiaphas and all his people were out of adjustment. Out of adjustment. They could have saw the signs. They could have still ministered in the temple with the Holy of Holy wide open. They could have carried on the teachings of Jesus Christ. But in their pride and in their greed, they would not let it happen. So when Jesus said here, the temple's going to be destroyed and I'm going to destroy it, he wasn't talking on a physical level, he was talking about his body, but on a spiritual level, he was talking about him becoming the great high priest and them being his ministers. And they did not want to give up that power. They wanted to be God. Does the world do anything like that today? Why do you think we have evolution? Because they don't want to say the words creation. Why do you think we have communism? You know, when Jesus Christ returns, we'll have communism. Nobody will be hungry. You know, communism says everybody's equal, everybody has the same amount of stuff, everybody will have a job, everybody will have a house, there'll be no homelessness. And then they try to implement it, and the greed and the money comes in, and the only fat guy in North Korea is eating lobster, and everybody else is trying to get a thimble full of rice for something. Because men are in charge of it, and men have sinful natures. Now, when Jesus Christ is in charge of it, we'll all have a mansion. The trees will bear fruit every 30 days, once a month. Okay? Nobody will be hungry because my apple tree will be your apple tree. There won't be any fences. Jesus Christ will own the land. We'll work in the garden and do whatever he tells us to do. And there won't be any fences, and there won't be any mortgages. Our mansion will be free. Our food will be free. And we'll worship the Lord. There'll be no debt. Health care will be taken care of. Won't be an issue. And it won't cost you a dime either. Nancy, who's the lady that's going to give us free health care? Elizabeth Warren's going to give us free health care? No, she's going to take 80% of your paycheck in taxes and call it free health care. But it's going to cost all of us dearly. And I don't care if a Democrat or a Republican tells you it's free health care. it can't be free. Somebody's gotta pay for it, and we're the only people paying taxes, so who do you think it's gonna be? Do you know that if you take every dime every millionaire in the world has and put it in the treasury, that it'll run the government for a month and a half? So how are they gonna give us free health care if they don't take my money? But when God comes, it'll be free, you won't be sick, there'll be no pain and suffering, there'll be no death, and you won't have to pay the funeral guy $10,000 to do 100 funerals a year so he can be rich. You won't be dead. Your kids won't die. Then it'll be because it'll be administrated by somebody who loves you and not by somebody who loves money and power. And you can go through the world and you can see all kinds of instances where man is trying to be God. And I can go on all day. You don't want to hear all this. Where man is trying to be God by being in power, rather than acknowledging that God's in power and being a servant to him. I don't care which side of the government you own, it's never going to take care of you like God will. And if we don't get upstairs, we're going to take care of you.